let's start talking about lesson 2 then. And we already had one question.
25. What variables repeat information? Why might this be? My question was just because I checked my answers and I know that the correct answer had the actual answers, but then we didn't answer the question, why might this be? And
That's a good catch. I totally did forget to answer the second part of that question. That's my bad. To back up a second, in a lot of these types of questions in particular, like there's no right answer. I just am sharing the way that I doesn't mean that what you've written is wrong. There's lots of ways to answer a lot of these questions. And I usually do make a note that answers may vary. And for that why part, definitely answers may vary. We're talking about the airplane information. Those flights are all going to one destination, right? RDU. That's the Raleigh-Durham Airport. And so why might some of that information be repeated? What's your thinking on that?
They all have the same departure airport, so it's kind of like this airport statistics on where they're going, what the bag carrier is, and all of that.
Yep, and that's a perfectly acceptable answer. Well, the arrival airport is the same though. You'd said departure, but I'm sure that's what you meant. And the same flights go every Tuesday. The same flight goes from, like, let's say JFK to Raleigh-Durham. So that's going to be repeated information. The same plane goes back and forth a lot of time. There's a lot of reasons why you would have that repeated information. Okay, so with that, this is what you were asked to work on for today. On my worksheet, I always highlight and color code things because that helps me kind of visualize what's happening, just to make sure everyone's on the same page. These are not to turn in. These are just as a way to help you get some practice working on the problems, and also to get more detailed information for when you're taking a quiz or doing the test or the final exam. Ideally, you'd be keeping all of these worksheets in a 3-ring binder or something. What Meg had showed us, that kind of Cliff Notes page that she had set up for each lesson, that would be the kind of quick and dirty overview. But then if you needed more details, you could go to the worksheet. And even if we were in person, that aspect of this would be exactly the same. I still wouldn't be collecting. This lesson is the first lesson where we're really getting our hands dirty with statistics. We're really starting statistics for real. Last week was just kind of a, how were you thinking about it? What do you already know? What's this class going to look like? But now we're actually starting the real stuff, if you will. So we have the population. This is something that is really important. The population is all, but the sample is small. And it's important to know population doesn't always mean people. The population can vary. So here we saw that the population was residents of a state, all New Battery, people who bought a phone, or even storks. Thursday, the population is going to be a song. And lesson 3 is dealing even in more detail about samples and sampling. We're going to kind of drill down a little more about this. So Thursday, we're going to be talking about musicians taking a piece, a sample from another person's song and using it as part of their own. If you listen to a lot of music, you'll hear that a lot. And there's some famous cases and some lawsuits that have happened. And even Happy Birthday has a little bits of Beethoven in it in the beginning. And if you notice, when you go to restaurants or on TV, they don't sing the Happy Birthday song a lot. And that's because the Happy Birthday song, the traditional one you probably sing at home, Happy Birthday to You, that song is actually copyrighted. 2 teachers wrote that song. So anytime it's sung in a restaurant or on a movie or in a TV show, they have to pay royalty. And the teachers that invented that, or wrote that song rather, are, I would think they're super rich right about now. But for today, we're kind of just learning a lot of this vocabulary. Then we have the difference between a statistic and a parameter. And a statistic is something that you find out about a sample, whereas a parameter is something that's known about a population. Ideally, when we're doing research, that sample is going to contain characteristics of the population to make it a representative sample. All good statistics want to be representative samples. Okay, and we're going to go delve into more about what a representative sample is in lesson 3 and other lessons. Sampling is a huge part of statistics, so this is something we're going to be talking about a lot. Okay, so I just want to make sure we're all understanding example 2. And then I'm going to put you back into those groups, and I'm going to have you work on examples 3 and 4. And then when you're finished with that, compare notes on examples 5 and 6. Example 2 says, suppose a researcher wants to know the average amount of money first-year college students spend at DVC on school supplies that do not include books. And here's the key right here. I put a box around that first phrase because anytime you see researchers want to know, or somebody was trying to determine, or that kind of phrase, what follows is the research question. So your job is to just take that statement and somehow change it into a question. Usually, you just have to change a couple words at the beginning and add a question mark at the end. And there you have it. I'm not trying to have you rewrite the research question. So you see how I just wrote on average instead of the average. And then I added a question mark at the end, and I was done, okay? The population here is all first-year DVC students, but the sample was the 100 first-year students that they randomly surveyed, okay? And this is the method that they did. It was a random survey, but the sample was these 100 first-year students, okay? And the variable is what we want to know about. The key for the variable, where to find that, is it's in the research question. And if you go back to the research question, it says, on average, what is the amount of money first-year college students spend? That is the variable. Oh, this should say amount spent on school supplies other than books. And then the data is collected. How we get that is any statistics that are in that little paragraph about the survey results. So here we found out some students spent $150, $200, and $225. So that is actually data that was collected. So with that, I'm going to have you go into groups and work on examples 3 and 4, okay? And remember, in those groups, in general, just know when I put you in groups to work on problems, I will be popping into groups. If you get stuck or have a question or something's confusing, there is a method to request help on the bottom of this, and that's basically like raising your hand for the group. And then if I know you have questions, then I'll pop into your group, all right? And do make sure to assign somebody to keep track of the time and to assign somebody to keep track of those announcements. And those notifications go away fairly quickly.
I kind of backtracked on when we got to 16. I listed meat eaters, pescatarians, and vegetarians, the population for 15, and then I thought that was and they were trying to just think about cover a range of diets.
You're on the right track. That type of diet is more of the variable they're trying to study. Because if you reread your, what do you have for your research question? Let's go back up to 14 real quick.
How does diet affect the possibility of heart disease and stroke?
Exactly, yes, right? So those are your variables right there. Diet, your heart disease, or stroke. So then the population, and this one's a little bit trickier, okay, because the population isn't as explicitly stated like it is in a lot of the other ones. I would say the population is more just people.
Yeah, I said people who eat, just like people who eat.
Yeah, I mean, that would work too. This one's this one, it's more, you got to kind of read between the lines, because, there's we know that there's a lot more types of diet than just these 3. I could see, if you being more specific about those 3, that would be fine. I would totally take that. Okay. But I was just kind of thinking that more generally about people. They're not explicitly saying. So that part, lots of answers. And then the sample is also a bit tricky. What did you put for 16?
I made my answer the meat eaters, pescatarians, and vegetarians.
Yeah, this one, again, the participants is a little bit tricky because we're not explicitly told. On the previous one, we were told, samples of 35 cars, samples of 100 DVC students. So this one, the sample, you could even just say participants.
Oh, okay.
Because that's what the sample is. The sample is the people that participated in the study. Does that make sense? So just keep it a little more general.
Okay.
I'm going to have a discussion board that's just strictly show and tell of our pets. Okay, see you folks.
We had some
Yeah.
concerns with example 4. It says that in the question about what the sample is, it says it should include a description and a number, but it didn't really give a number. So
You're talking about number 16?
yeah, number
You're
16.
exactly correct. And 16, that example and the number is a really just a copy and paste. Any good study should give you the number, and that's on me. I forgot to include it. Description. So you are absolutely correct. Whoops, that's my bad. Yeah. So for this one, the sample that was studied, you could just say that it's the people who participated in the study.
Okay.
This one is a little bit difficult because even the population isn't defined. So what did you put for the population for number 15?
Honestly, I just put people with diets because I didn't know what to put.
Yeah, absolutely.
But
Or
the
you could
human
just-
population.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Or you could even say people who are omnivores, pescatarians, or vegetarians, because that's really what they're studying is just
Yeah.
those 3 diets. There's more diets than that. There's vegan.
Right.
So yeah, this one is a little bit more open for interpretation.
We're on example 5, and
Okay.
we are listing down what's qualitative, what's quantitative. So I guess we would say, like, for quantitative, it would be mostly like dates, so month, day, departure time, distance, hours, and then for quantitative, it would be more like flight, origin, destination.
Yeah,
'Cause
that works.
yeah, because they're all categorical.
Yep. Categorical.
So
Yeah.
that's how I forgot the word, listed those as.
Yep, that works.
Was that you have a question and you're just too shy to ask?
I'm still a little bit confused. I don't know if that's just because like it's new material for me and it takes me a while, or I'm actually challenged.
Well, I mean, it's probably a combination of all of that, to be honest. It's only the second week, and this is the first real statistics that we're doing. The beginning of the semester, trying to find your groove in all of your classes that you're taking. It's kind of a whirlwind, right? Which is why I wanted to take up some time this morning to just kind of check in and see where you're at, because we're all trying to find our footing. Basically, we just took a puzzle and we just emptied that jigsaw puzzle on the table, and that's where we're at right now. Did you watch the videos?
I didn't watch the videos. I got kind of confused with like the module. Anyways, yeah.
Okay. For Thursday, at the very least, even if you're not able to do the worksheet, at least watch the videos beforehand, and that will help kind of make everything will make a little more sense for you. Okay. And then remember too, there's those readings that kind of give you the big overview, and you don't have to read them like you're going to be tested on them. It's not a history class or English class. It's just kind of to give you a bit of a deeper understanding. Okay. So the key is to just find your groove. That's the hardest part about the beginning of the semester, I think, or at least for me anyway.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Were there any questions or sticking points or confusing aspects that I wasn't able to address with people in the breakout rooms?
Building type is under nominal, and then house style, I had originally put it under nominal, but in your solutions it says ordinal. So what is the difference between house style and building type?
That is a really good question. Let me share my screen here. So the bottom of page 4, this really explains the difference between nominal and ordinal. Okay, so the main difference is nominal is just categories. So names, colors, religions, fruits, those kinds of things. The difference with ordinal is it has a specific ranking or scale to it. So grade level, grade 9, 10, 11. Pain level, you're rating on a scale of 1 to 10, where 1 means you're no pain at all and 10 is, give me some morphine right now. If we look at house style, the reason I put that under ordinal is because it's not just style of house, like is it a craftsman or is it a Victorian? If you look at house style, where it's the number of stories. And so for me, that's why I saw it as ordinal, because that puts it in an order. 1 story, 2 story, 3 story.
Yeah.
But like I've been stressing, in statistics, a lot of these things are open to interpretation, and a lot of these fall under multiple categories. So I could see that house style could go into nominal. First of all, I'm making an assumption about the 1 story, 2 story being, how many stories there are, and I see that as a ranking. You might not see that as a ranking, and that would be perfectly fine to put in nominal, okay? I could see that going either place. If you put that into interval or ratio, I wouldn't really agree with that. And there's a lot of things that could go into multiple categories. And depending on how we want to analyze our data, we would look at it one way or another. For example, let's talk about the year built, 1960, 61, 58, 68. I put that under interval because it's an order of equal intervals. But there are certain types of analysis that we would want to do that I couldn't do if it was a quantitative variable, that I could only do if it's a qualitative variable. So something like year built, we could also look at as being qualitative, where the year is a bin with a scale or a rank, and we could put it in ordinal as well, okay? Because we're not looking at the month, we're just looking at the year it was built. That's two different types of variables depending on the type of analysis we want it to do. But generally speaking, the year goes into the interval. But this is part of what makes statistics so complicated and so useful simultaneously, because it has flexibility on how we look at things. And we can do different types of analysis depending on how we want to look at things. And we might do it both ways and see which gives us better information. So statistics, you can do a little bit to a whole bunch. And in fact, that's why this class is an introductory level, is we're just kind of skimming the surface of the complexity of this topic. There's a lot of majors who will learn this at a much, much deeper level. For those of you that are interested in majoring in statistics, you actually have to take calculus, because remember, statistics is applied math, and that application is founded on calculus. There's a lot of complexity and nuance and flexibility in this subject matter. And there's going to be a lot of times where I'm answering a question or I'm addressing your answer, what you put down for a question. And a lot of times I'll be saying, well, yes, but no. And it's because I know of all this complexity and nuance that's happening in the background, but I don't want to get into it because it makes it super complicated. So, I have to find that balance. And so I guess that's my little introduction to just tell you that this stuff gets really complicated and we're just scratching the surface. And hopefully we're scratching the surface at the right level, that we're not making it too complicated, but we're giving you some information that helps you see the power of it. So with that, I will remind you of two things. The answers to all of these worksheets are at the bottom of the page under the lesson where you printed the worksheet out from. And I'm always sticking around for the next 20 minutes at the end of class, but also at the beginning of class. Okay, so with that, thank you, folks. It was good to see you all. Have a great afternoon, and we will see you on Thursday with lesson 3.